I've been meaning to tell you, your photo is, you look so senatorial in that photo. Great
We're
photo.
live.
Okay, we're live. We're back. While we're giving the drafters some time to accomplish the impossible task we set them up with, we're going to walk through. This is Senator Brock's bill he's been working on, which is the Vermont Telecommunications Authority. And he wanted to walk it through this week in case we decided we want to do something. We do have a major telecom coming from the other body, is my understanding. So, Randy, the floor is yours, and Maria, and I'll let you walk us through this. Now, you muted, Senator.
Thank you. I'll just introduce it briefly and tell you what it's about, and then ask Maria to go through it if she would. We have been talking back and forth with the House committee, who's working on a similar thing, and they've approached it in a very similar fashion, although there are some differences to work out. The bill recreates the Vermont Telecommunications Authority, something that we wound down several years ago, but it does it in a somewhat different way. One of our problems that we sometimes have when we do things like try to manage broadband is we do it by creating a board to oversee it. And the board is usually one that is done by part-time people that meets once a month in order to plan the agenda for the next meeting. And as a result, nothing ever really seems to get done. And that's our problem with broadband. I've been trying to figure out, and have been unable to, how much we've spent trying to get statewide broadband over the past 10 years. And despite all the promises, we don't have it. And the goal here was to create an entity that had some fixed responsibility for it, and also had someone in charge who, and I don't like to use the term broadband czar, but I mean somebody in charge who had both the talent and the focus, and particularly the focus to do it. And one of the problems is that we have left this as a task to the Department of Public Service. And despite their best efforts, there have been, as the committee knows, based on past experience, there have been quite a few hiccups. Part of the problem is that there is an almost inherent conflict of interest between the department and its regulatory authority, and what is actually needed here is both a managerial, but more than that, an advocacy to really focus on this almost to the exclusion of anything else. And so we created essentially a model for a VTA that has an empowered chair as opposed to a chair who is a volunteer who is tasked with a certain level, using in some ways kind of the model that the Natural Resources Board or the Green Mountain Care Board might use. That said, that is the principal focus of this bill, is creating the authority, determining how it's set up to work, and then creating a Vermont Telecommunications Fund as the mechanism that we use in order to get money out and get it into the hands of those who need it. And the focus here is on the CUDs. It is also on the local Vermont telecommunications providers, such as the Waitsfield Telephone and Franklin Telephone, people who also have been active in expanding using fiber to the premises within Vermont. And then also some of the power companies, in particular the co-ops. There's also a mechanism to provide some funding, like in the communications initiative, under certain circumstances, but with some limitations on other providers. It is focused on providing the flexibility from a funding standpoint to put money in. And in particular, I'm thinking of the federal funds that we are likely to get in large order. And the dollar figure in this particular bill is frankly very arbitrary because there's uncertainty. But we know that the amount of money that we need is far more ultimately than the money in the bill. And the principal object of this fund is actually to create a revolving fund. In other words, to use money that comes in for broadband, and to the greatest extent possible, rather than simply giving it away, using it for things such as subordinated debt, reserves, for lending and matching funds being loaned by other providers, to give those other providers, whether it be Vita or commercial banks, some assurance that their risk is minimized. So the idea is, to the maximum extent possible, to leverage funding so that we can get more bang for our buck, but at the same time, do so in such a way that these projects are commercially feasible and likely to make a return on that investment, so that the fund gets the money back and is able then to revolve it and use it over and over and over again, as opposed to granting it out and never seeing it again. There are a number of other provisions that you'll see when Maria goes over them, but that is the principal purpose of this bill. The House bill, which has been passed out of their committee, it's gone to Ways and Means and also Approps, and I think it's in Approps right now and scheduled to be out hopefully today. I didn't see it on the calendar, so it may be the first of the week, but we anticipate that that's going to come out. And so this bill, the notion of our getting through this and getting it out before crossover, I think is perhaps hoping for a miracle on the one hand, but stranger things have happened. But if nothing else, by getting it in, it gives us a basis that we have something as a vehicle, so that when the House bill arrives, we have at least given some thought to how we might like to structure it, as opposed to how they might like to structure it. And that's kind of it in a quick broad brush. And so if anybody has any question for me right now, or would you rather just have Maria go through it so you can see exactly what's in it?
Not seeing any hands. So Maria, why don't you walk us through this?
Okay, great. I would be happy to do that. Maria Royal with Legislative Counsel. And the document, I believe, has been posted to the committee's webpage, I think probably under my name. It was just introduced today on the Senate floor. Would you like me to share screen and pull it up?
I think that might be helpful.
Okay. And maybe I'll make the font a little bit bigger.
Oh, that's great.
Does that work?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, as always, Senator Brock did an excellent job describing the bill, and I know it's 3:35 now. I was told I had until 3:45. Is that still right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me check this out again. This is Thursday. We've done that. You've got a little more time than that.
Okay. Well, I'll plan on going through at a relatively high level, but of course, stop me if you have any questions, particular areas you want to focus on today. As Senator Brock said, this is basically a reconstituted VTA. There are some big distinctions, and we'll go through those as they come up. I will say at the outset that there is a sunset for this applicable to this entity. It would sunset in 5 years, just so you have that in the back of your mind. There is an opportunity, though, that the authority in its final report to the legislature make a recommendation for its continued existence if it feels that that is appropriate. So I just wanted to have you as the context as you think about what its authority is and its powers. So I'm not going to read every section kind of on a line by line, but I will go through the policy and purpose because they really establish the framework, very consistent with what Senator Brock just said. So it is a policy to support and facilitate efforts that advance the state's goal of achieving universal access to reliable, high quality, affordable mobile telecommunications and broadband service. So this applies to both mobile and fixed broadband service. And then the purpose, it is the purpose of this chapter to reconstitute the VTA as the state entity responsible for coordinating, overseeing, and facilitating statewide mobile telecommunications and broadband deployment. The authority shall be empowered to make strategic and innovative investments in mobile telecommunications and broadband projects. And these investments shall be informed by comprehensive, accurate, and reliable data and shall be consistent with long-term policy and planning. The goal of the authority shall be to foster financially sustainable projects and to simultaneously promote competition and universal access to reliable, high quality, affordable mobile telecom and broadband service in unserved and underserved locations in Vermont. So that's the larger framework within which to view the activities of this new VTA. I will also mention that there are some conforming statutory amendments that would be required when you're ready to make your final decisions that are not included in this draft, but certainly can be added at a later date. For example, the current chapter on the VTA, whether you want to replace that or just amend that, et cetera, whatever. I just wanted you to be aware of that. So in terms of some of the highlights of the VTA, there are 9 members on the board of directors. That's similar to the old VTA that is now in dormant status. However, the membership is different.
Sorry, Ms. Royal. Madam Chair, do you want to hold questions till the end?
Yeah, we've got
Okay.
really limited time.
Great. That's fine. Just checking. Thanks.
Yeah, Faith is scheduled S60, I think, or S1, one of them at 3:45. I just got the text. So
can you hear me?
Yeah, you were frozen, but I could hear you.
You could hear me. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry, I all of a sudden just saw that my internet was lost. So let's pull this screen back up. Okay. So the chair and the chief executive officer of the authority, the CEO is like the executive director of the old authority, but as Senator Brock described, a little bit more active and also a voting member of the board of directors, which is different. Then there's the commissioner of public service, the treasurer, 1 public member selected by VCUDA. This is the association that represents the CUDs in Vermont. 1 public member selected by the Telephone Association of Vermont. This is the association that represents the independent legacy telephone providers. 2 public members appointed by the governor who shall not be employees or officers of the state at the time of appointment. And then 1 member selected by the Speaker of the House and 1 member of the Senate appointed by the Senate Committee on Committees. So 2 legislators, House and Senate. There's a provision just related to the qualifications of members, some of the considerations to be given, their expertise. They serve 3-year terms. It's the authority, the board of directors that has the authority over obviously the CEO and all of the authority that's given under this chapter. And I'm just gonna, kind of run past some of the more boilerplate provisions.
We're
go on.
moving along here.
Yeah, okay. So in that case, the Vermont Telecommunications Fund, this is a special fund. Any money that's going to be distributed by the authority through its programs would go into this special fund. In terms of the general powers and duties, the authority is the statewide coordinator of mobile telecom and broadband access and adoption initiatives, shall come up with any financing, investment strategies that facilitate deployment, provide resources to providers in the form of grants, loans, any other assistance, administer. You'll see the existing high cost program, as well as the connectivity initiative grant program, facilitate partnerships, receive grants, apply for grants on behalf of entities or jointly with entities as appropriate, consult with VITA, the bond bank, work with any other agencies about applicable fees, work on fiber optic routing and pole surveys, basically a clearinghouse for any potential funding that's available, making sure that that is coordinated and known. And then the entity, like the dormant BTA, has the authority to actually own infrastructure, as well as provide grants for other entities. Then 13, create and maintain comprehensive, accurate, reliable service availability maps, similar to what the Department of Public Service does now. Create an inventory of pole data. 15, develop the state's telecom plan. This is the 10-year telecom plan. This new authority would be responsible for that. And then this entity would be responsible for making sure that the networks are secure, resilient, with respect to any potential hazards, outages, cybersecurity threats, et cetera. Just a provision on confidentiality. Provision that subsection C is, if they don't have the resources to actually do the 10-year plan in particular, that the CEO reports back to you and notifies you and requests additional resources as necessary. So I won't go into detail on section 8085, but this is the revolving loan program that Senator Brock talked about to fund projects. In terms of what the requirements are, the eligibility requirements, you'll see for broadband funding, CUDs, the small ETCs, the independent telephone companies, electric co-ops, and any other ISP, if the authority determines such provider's proposed broadband project is consistent with the policies and purposes of this chapter and is otherwise in the best interest of the state. But entities can partner with entities that might otherwise be ineligible. And then subsection C, in terms of specific projects, if they're for broadband service, they have to provide at least 25/3 service and be capable of being upgraded to meet the state statutory goals, which is 100 symmetrical by 2024. And then if they're either mobile or broadband service, that they have kind of an open access requirement, that they're available to multiple service providers, the infrastructure on a non-discriminatory basis and at rates that the authority deems reasonable. There's a establishment of a broadband core. This is similar to what you heard about in the recovery telecom plan that Matt Dunn and his group presented to you. This is just a group of Vermonters or folks that can help with outreach and technical support for a limited period of time for 3 years. 8088 is just basically working with various other state entities and boards, ensuring that there's cooperation and collaboration, reporting requirements, quarterly and annual. And then the sunset, I've already talked about, 5-year sunset. Section 2 is really just the kind of organizational transition and creation of this new authority and when it's kind of up and running and where it's housed and that kind of thing. The Telecom and Connectivity Advisory Board, this is an existing board that advises the commissioner on grants and other policy and planning the proposal here is to repeal that board because the authority would be taking over. Section 4 just has to do with this clarification about any confidential business information that CUDs have. And then Section 5, so the dormant VTA had bonding authority. This entity does not, but there is a study to basically look at whether it should, if there are opportunities that they might have by issuing revenue bonds. And Senator Brock talked about what's here, a general fund appropriation of $20 million will go into the fund that's just created in this act to fund these programs. And that is it. It will take effect on passage.
A lot of thought went into it, Randy. Thank you. Committee, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to delve into this today. Hopefully, if we get everything out tomorrow, we can go back and work on this. I think it's definitely going to take us a little bit longer than 24 hours to do it.
I have
Because
great confidence in this committee's ability.
We do
your
expect,
confidence may be misplaced, Senator.
we do expect a bill from the House, though, right? That seems to be on. the-
Yes, yeah. And this definitely gives us, I think they are not dealing with the telephone service. They're dealing strictly with broadband and with something a little less formal. So we'll
But pretty
take a look at
long.
Senator Bray.
Yeah, I'd like to ask Senator Brock, so thanks for pulling, all your work and Ms. Royal, all your work on pulling this together. And I have sort of a big picture question that goes back to when I was on the VTA and Governor Shumlin wanted to get rid of it. I'd say basically because he said, if I'm going to be responsible for delivering this basic service to Vermonters, then let me be in charge of it. And so the independence of the VTA was, I think, from his point of view, sort of understandably objectionable because he really didn't have his hands on the controls and he wanted them to. So that was, I think, a big part of why it went away before. I mean, some people might say it was because of how much it got done or didn't get done. So have you talked to the administration about this and what's their take on sort of reestablishing a semi-independent VTA?
I have had a number of conversations with the administration. I've also met with the governor's office, Commissioner Tierney, and myself to talk about it, although I don't have immediate feedback from Commissioner Tierney on the latest final draft. And the governor was supportive of the idea. And I think part of it is that the fact that the chair of the board is appointed by the governor, subject to the advice and consent of the Senate. And if it's not doing what it wants, the chair can be fired. So that's one piece in which you do make a linkage to the executive.
Yeah.
The second piece, and we didn't go over it in the draft, is I put a provision in there regarding the telecom plan. And it essentially says that in the event that the telecom plan doesn't get done, which we noticed hasn't really been effectively done in years, despite statutory language, the report of that fact goes to the committee at the chair's next confirmation hearing, so that the committee doing the confirmation is aware of that. And that was just designed to send a flag up.
Sure, great. And the other quick question was, in terms of like bootstrapping this whole thing, because right now we are a bit hamstrung for the lack of a telecom plan, how, I'm just trying to think of how these guys get started if they're also charged with writing a telecom plan. Is that really their
We
first
have a telecom plan, and we had an RFP done by the department, which is out and has been let. So the preparation of the plan, I frankly, and this is just my observation, I have real concerns about what we're going to get and about whether or not what we've asked for is what we really need. And that, I think, is something that this authority will poke at when it's up and running. But we do have a transition period in order to get this up and running. And during that transition period, the function would be performed as it is now, by the Commissioner of Public Service until such time as the chair of the authority is appointed. But we got to have a transition, and we can't, in effect, stop in the middle of the process
Right.
and wait for everything to happen, because this is really time sensitive. This is why it's so important to move now and get some funding now, get some money to the CUDs now. Because if we wait, if we fool around with this, we're going to lose another year. We're going to lose another construction season. And this needs a czar who actually is able and competent to get this moving and put it on a priority basis and focus on it.
Thank
Senator,
you.
when we were discussing healthcare reform in this committee, we referred to the healthcare czarina. And the chair liked that.
Okay,
Zarina.
that's good.
One thing, I think it's great that you're setting the idea of setting up something, particularly because if we're eligible to pull in federal money, that it feels to me like this makes us a stronger applicant because we are sort of closer to the ARA shovel ready status, And I know
And we
that one,
looked at what other states are doing in constructing this, so as to get an idea of what's out there. And Massachusetts is one that's close. Maria, you may, recall from the research you did that there are others that are using somewhat similar models, all a little bit different, but with an agency that's focused on getting this done.
We're gonna definitely spend a lot more time on this, but we got two bills we got to agree on today, so we can vote them out tomorrow, hopefully with a couple more. And we've got S60, which is back, and we sent Ellen out yesterday and asked her to bring us in a draft which put the amendments we talked about in the bill, in the present law, so we could see the context. And I think we agreed that, now, Ellen, I'm looking at you, that we could do, a utility could do a flexible rate structure, 2%, no more than 2% a year cumulative, and of 10%. And that, and I apparently it's the and or thing. They'd either hit 10%. I thought it was, or they were 10 years out from their last formal rate review. But somebody said, but you could also do and. So you hit 10%. And if you don't go up anymore, you've got, if you do 10% in 1 or 2 years and then you don't do anything, you just have to go in. Did we end up on 8 years or 10 years? 10 years, right? Where we ended up. Okay.
Yes.
So it's an or and I'm not sure what that answer is, but is it you hit 10% and you're 10 years out from your last rate hearing, or is it 10% or you're 10 years out from the last rate hearing? There's some concern that you may go up 2% now and 2% in 3 years. I'm not sure. So that's the one thing I know seems to still be floating in the wind. So Ellen, why don't you walk us through this? And Melissa, Greg is here. Let's walk it through, see what we've got. And
Sure.
then,
So Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. I'm here on S60. Yes, that's which one
yes,
it is.
we're all there right now.
I'm here to talk about the innovative rates bill. So yes, the chair was just mentioning that when we left off yesterday, you were contemplating specific parameters about this program. So I think the last issue for you to decide is related to this and or question. And it's in the first section. So we can start with that language. So section 1, we're in Title 30, 218 DN. And so subsection N sets up a procedure for municipal companies and electric co-ops to use this innovative rate structure. So notwithstanding some of the existing sections, a municipal company or an electric co-op shall be authorized to change its rates for service to its customers if the rate change is, and this is the factors you've decided on, applied to all customers equally, not more than 2% during any 12-month period, and cumulatively not more than 10% from the rates last approved by the commission. And then at the last meeting, we were discussing this new language in D. Not going to take effect more than 10 years from the last approval for a rate change from the commission. And the reason you were contemplating this language is that the prior draft of this bill had a sort of a start date for when this program could begin. So when a company had to have had their last rate go into effect. And so your committee discussed to avoid that conversation if perhaps you just had a 10-year window. So
if you never hit 10%, you could go 15 years without talking. Okay. And I think what Riley Allen wanted was you had to come in, he was talking 7 or 8. We ended up on 10. But you had to come in at least once every X number of years for a review, which is why I thought this was an and. Committee, what are your thoughts?
And so for the record, I did originally propose, and I think
I
it
know
might be
you
an
did, and I think both Senator Hardy and I said, no, I think it should be an or, and then it's seeing it in
Right.
print.
Right. So, and we're specifically talking about line 16. So I do think that is I think that's your main decision point right now.
Yep.
Senator
So-
Cummings?
Yes, Senator Hardy, I can't see you.
Yeah, I wasn't sure.
There you are.
I have in my notes that I wrote down or, but now that I see Ellen's draft, I think I prefer and, because I think what we were talking about yesterday was that if one of these entities had a rate change in 2015, they could have a couple years where they do the 2%. But then in 2025, they would have to come in for a full rate review because it would have been 10 years since 2015. And I think that was sort of the example we were talking about and why Ellen said and I think you were right, Ellen. And so I think it should be an and based on seeing it now in the draft.
I do too. Does anyone disagree with that? I am not hearing anyone. Okay, it's an and. And we
Okay.
will go on.
All right. So subdivision 2, the municipal company or electric co-op shall provide written notice of a rate change pursuant to this subsection to its customers, the Department of Public Service, and the commission at least 45 days prior to implementing the rate change. So the new language of providing written notice to the customers is in there. And then on the top of page 2, included with the submission shall be a rate analysis describing the rationale for the rate change. unless an objection to the rate change is filed by the Department of Public Service with the commission within 45 days of this notice, or the commission orders an investigation on its own motion, the municipal company or co-op may implement the rate change. But then, so I maybe needed a different, I may have a typo here, because then you did discuss yesterday this new language in 3. So there actually should be a provision that leads into 3, which says, if the department does not object to the change, 5 persons adversely affected by the change may apply at their own expense to the commission by petition, alleging why the change is unreasonable and unjust, and asking the commission to investigate the matter and make such orders as justice and law required. And that is the language that's in the standard rate making statute, which I think is 2226. So I may have a typo there. We need to sort of have these 2 sections work together.
Well,
But
yeah,
if,
we'll have time to fix typos before we vote. I'm trying to get us to agree in general principle at this point.
right, so this has written notice goes out to the customers, DPS, and the commission 45 days out. If the department doesn't object or the commission doesn't object on its own, then 5 adversely affected ratepayers can raise the objection with the commission. Subsection 4, a municipal company or electric co-op may.
Sorry, I was
Oh,
on
sorry.
mute. I was on mute. I just wanted to ask a question on subsection 3.
Yes, no.
Sure.
So is this what happens? So they're pursuing a flexible rate increase for 2% on a given, and the department objects. Does that throw it into a full-blown rate hearing? And if the department doesn't object and 5 consumers object, does that throw it into a full-blown rate hearing? Or is it just brings it to the attention of the PUC and they make a decision as to whether there should be a full-blown rate hearing?
So if the department objects, I believe it would go into a full rate making. In regards to the 5 customers, I guess I don't know the answer to that.
I saw Riley coming in, and I remember him saying, usually we sit down and we work things out. So Riley, are you there?
I'm here. Can you see me?
Okay. How does this usually work?
Yeah, usually, normal course of business is utility comes in and engages with us beforehand. They tell us that they're going to be filing stuff, and we kind of work with them. Then they make the filing, and then that starts a clock. That's a 45-day clock before the rates take effect, unless we object. So we have an ability within 30 days to raise an objection, and then it's up to the commission to essentially decide whether to kind of investigate. They can kind of look at our objections, consider the merits of our objection and the reason that we're asking for the request, and either kind of open an investigation or not. But usually they do. I mean, that's the normal course.
Okay,
How
and
about-
5 people complained?
I would imagine it's a similar thing. 5 people complain, and the commission considers the merits of their petition and either opens or explains why they don't want to proceed with an investigation.
So is this language identical to the private sector? Because it seems to be different for DPS and the public. I mean, in subsection 3, it says you can allege why the change is unreasonable and unjust, and ask the commission to investigate. But the commission can say, no, I'm not going to investigate. It seems to imply that if you file an objection, something more elaborate's going to happen.
No, I think what I think that what I just said was wrong, and what Riley just said was more accurate. That in either case, the PUC has the option of whether or not to investigate based on the objection.
Can I jump in with a slightly different interpretation? We would read that if the department objects, this section cannot, rates can't be adjusted under this section with the language unless an objection is filed.
Yep.
We may implement the rate change. I would read that conversely, if an objection is raised by the department, we may not implement a rate change under this section. So I understand Senator Strotkin's question that the Department of Public Service essentially has a different role than the public there. And the threshold for the full rate case is lower for the department than for the citizens. That was our
Okay.
intent, and that's how I would read this language.
Okay, so
I
you're reading
I
it.
think I would
Don't
also,
have to, you can always say, okay, we aren't going to raise it 5% and back off. And nothing happens.
I thought they
If,
could- I thought they could only raise it 2%.
yeah, all right. So if they say, okay, we're not going to raise it 2% this year, if the department says, we're not sure, and they say, okay, but we're sure we don't want to go through a full-blown hearing, so we're just going to back off. I think that's what Melissa is interpreting that as. Ellen, how do you interpret it? And Riley, I'll ask you next, or maybe I'll ask Riley first and let Ellen off the.
So I guess I'm struggling to say, because in my mind's eye, I'm thinking about the process as it exists today, and the process as it exists today is that 30 and 45 day window that I was talking about. So here it says, if the department does not object to the change as provided in this section, commission by petition alleging the commission, we're asking the commission to investigate the matter, and then it seems to me it's up to the commission to decide the matter, whether from the company side, whether they can proceed if we object. I'm struggling with that. If we object, it sounds like it cannot move forward with the 2%. Is that what Melissa's saying?
I think that's what Melissa's saying, rather than, I guess it could move forward with a hearing. But she's, I think, and Melissa, correct me, saying that if you say, we're not so sure about that, they say, okay, well, they get to choose. Do they want to go forward, or do they just back off?
Yes, I would assume that if they move forward, then that would trigger essentially a full-blown investigation, although I'm
Right.
not sure how clear that is, because it looks like the commission has discretion to open an investigation. They're being asked to investigate. That implies discretion.
Okay, now I'm getting confused. If you object to the rate increase on your own, is your interpretation they can just say, okay, we won't do it,
Right.
and that's where it ends? If they say we want to go forward, then they're into a full rate increase. Are we talking about now 5 people object? And I think what we said is, if they object, the department gets to look at their objection, decide if it has merit or if they're just being contrary, and can say, nope, we don't think this has enough merit to go forward. Or In
I-
either case, can they just, the utility just back off? Riley, and Michael, I'll get you.
Okay,
I see.
From my standpoint, it looks like the 5 people are actually making a request of the commission. They aren't asking us at this point. And I don't think we have a role once the 5 people adversely affected by the change petition the commission.
Okay, so if they do the commission, then it would be up to the commission to decide if they move forward.
Right.
All right, Senator Sirotkin.
I think there may be some just language changes, but I think in terms of DPS, I think given that we're allowing this flexible rate thing, that if an objection is filed by DPS, the PUC has to go into action in terms of reviewing. They can't just say, we're going to grant the 2%. There has to be some sort of review at that point.
Right.
And I agree with you, Madam Chair. Certainly, if at that point the utility wants to pull their rate increase, no harm, no foul. They have no rate increase at that point. So there's nothing to review. I don't think there's a need for the commission at that point to affirmatively. It's like withdrawing your case in court. I'm done. Don't review me. I'm not asking it for any more. So I think that should be an option for the utilities. As far as the public, I'm okay with the way it's written so that the commission would have the authority what to do. I think we need a time frame in there though, because we're saying 30 days or 45 days for DPS to file. And we're saying the right of the public comes after the department doesn't object, which is after the 30 days. So how soon after does the public have to make that complaint?
Oh, I thought are we saying that, or can they not happen simultaneously?
Well,
The public doesn't usually know what the department's doing.
but the way it's written, doesn't it read that there's a threshold that the department has to give up on their objection before the 5 persons can file? It says if the department does not object, it's provided then 5 persons can adversely apply. So I thought that those people don't have the authority to complain until the department's period of complaint ends.
Okay, I see. I thought they were going to complain to the department, and then the department could
No, they
decide
they complain to the commission according to.
to the commission. So what makes sense?
I would just say, put a date in there, another 15, 30 days or whatever.
Okay, does that work?
Or if you want to do what you're suggesting, it could be written that way. Just take out the first part of the sentence where they have the right to petition regardless of what the department does.
That's what I thought it was. If the department objects, then they're going to have a method of having input, I believe. There's some public process. And if the department doesn't object, then 5 people can object.
Right. So
Is that
the department doesn't object within 30 days. What happens then?
okay?
Then you're saying that the public can petition the commission. All I'm saying is if that's the way it reads, which I think is how it reads, then we need a date. We can't just have the public being
Okay.
able to petition at any time in the next 2 years.
No. So within 15 days?
I would leave it to the experts. I don't know.
Senator, I think you are an expert in this.
I would say 30 days then if we're going to make a quick decision.
Melissa, I don't see you. Does that work for you?
That works for us. The intent was, I think, what you said, that these could happen concurrently. I think there just might be some date changes that would need to be included there sequentially to stay within that 45-day period overall. But conceptually, it works for us. And I would just raise that we would assume once the customers receive notice, they would also be getting notice of how to contact the Department of Public Service if they had concerns. So this provision 3 is really a backstop. If people have already conveyed those concerns to the Department of Public Service and the department has for some reason decided not to oppose the rate change, then the people still have recourse. But that works.
Your recourse is always just to back off the rate change or go through a full hearing.
For the utility, right, but the public has this recourse of filing with the commission if the department doesn't. Again, what you're discussing works for us. It's just, I think the dates need to be lined up, make sure they flow.
All right, so we'll get the date sequence. Does anybody on the committee, you'll have to holler because I can't see you, object to this? I'm not hearing anyone. Okay, Ellen, can you draft this?
Sure. I think
Okay, let's move.
Okay. So subdivision 4 is also new based on the conversations. So a municipal company or electric co-op shall be eligible to change its rates pursuant to this subsection only if it has received approval for a rate change from its governing body at a duly warned meeting held for such purpose prior to filing its written notice with the department and the commission.
Does that work, committee? I'm not hearing any shrieks, so keep going.
So then the other requirements of this section shall be eligible. Oh, so actually I should have pulled this out probably. This is the date after which a rate has to have been, they have to have had a full rate case.
Yeah.
So this should actually probably come out.
Yeah, if we
Subdivision 5.
that first set of language, okay.
So then we would have the last section here, the commission shall adopt by rule or order standards and procedures for implementing this subsection. Okay, so that is the innovative rate section.
I thought that was the flexible rate section.
Well,
It
it
is.
doesn't ever use the word flexible in there, but subsection O is about the pilot program.
Pilot, that's how we decide to refer to.
Tier 3. So yes, it's
The other ones have to be
related to-
equal to everybody, right? This one can set up some pilots that everybody won't be in.
Right.
Or maybe they will, but it's not your base rate.
Right. So this is, it's a little bit different. So subsection O, so a municipal company or an electric co-op shall be authorized to offer innovative rates or services to their customers as pilot programs without obtaining prior approval from the commission if the rate or service is designed to satisfy the requirements of Tier 3 of the Renewable Energy Standard or to advance the goals of the State Comprehensive Energy Plan, has a duration of 18 months or less, and shall not result in plant additions of more than 2% of the municipal company or electric co-op's net plant capacity, or an increase in the municipal companies or electric co-ops overall cost of service by more than 2%. So those are the parameters. The municipal company or co-op shall provide written notice of the innovative rate or service to its customers, the department, and the commission at least 45 days prior to offering the service. Included with the submission shall be the terms and conditions of service. Unless an objection to the innovative rate or service is filed with the commission within 45 days of this notice, or the commission orders an investigation on its own motion, The municipal company or co-op may commence offering the innovative rate or service to its customers. The municipal company or co-op shall provide written notice to the department and the commission at least 45 days prior to the end of the innovative rate or service duration period with any proposed modifications to the terms and conditions. Unless an objection to the innovative rate or service is filed with the commission within 45 days of this notice, or the commission orders an investigation on its own motion, the municipal company or co-op may continue offering the innovative rate or service to its customers. The commission may allow for the innovative rate or service to remain in effect pending the outcome of an investigation into the notice filing. The commission may establish by order or rule standards and procedures for implementing and interpreting this section. And effective date July 1, 2021.
Okay, committee, anyone object to this? Are we ready to send this for final draft?
Can I just ask a question? I don't know if there's a
Yes,
change. So we back up in the section where it talks about the scale of impact. I think it's a page earlier, like 2%, 2%.
Yep.
On the plant. So perhaps Ms. Bailey can fill me in. I'm just, or Mr. Allen, I'm just imagining, thinking of the case of GMP, the value of their plant, I don't know what it is, $1 billion or something like that. You know, it seems as though this could be a very big number. And I just wondered if that could mean, I mean, the plant is a large investment, right? And I don't know if that's the PUC look. I'm just checking, because if GMP's physical plant is $1 billion asset, then we're talking about, you know, a $20 million pilot or something like that.
Okay, but this is not GMP.
No, but I'm saying that for scale, like.
All right. So Melissa, where did that number come from?
So this subsection was actually proposed by the department. So maybe Riley would be better equipped to.
Okay, Riley, where'd that number come from?
Well, that came from us, and that came from kind of I mean, we've been through this a number of times with Green Mountain Power, and we kind of use really kind of some judgment in coming up with a sensible number. We know that there are a lot of what we're talking about potentially are things like battery storage. Battery storage is something that is capital intensive, and Senator Bray is right. I mean, the asset base and net rate base of Green Mountain Power is 1.7 billion. So a 2% number would be a huge number for Green Mountain Power. We do have programs where there are lots and lots of batteries that are going out in $5 million tranches. So those could add up. But for the smaller systems, it just seemed to putting in some boundaries on the innovation in terms of rate impacts and capital commitments were guardrails that we thought were appropriate. The 2% felt like the right number. That's a judgment thing. You could make it 1%, 3%, but providing some mechanism that recognizes that some of these programs could actually require some commitment of monies or capitals with associated rate impacts seemed like the relevant point.
Great. No, thank you. I wasn't challenging. It was just, I was trying to have a sense of the scale. And my impression is that battery storage is actually quite expensive, quite fast. So, okay, thank you.
Senator Sorokin.
Along the lines of Senator Bray, I think he raises some questions in my mind. So can you just scroll up a little bit more? I see small I and small 2, but I don't see 3. There is no
There is
Okay.
no duration.
So it has a duration of 18 months. Does that mean the rate increase automatically going into effect only lasts for 18 months?
No, I mean, typically, it means that it could translate into an eventual rate increase of 2%. That is, the program might start, it might have rate impacts, but those rate impacts aren't likely to unfold immediately. Those rate impacts are likely to unfold at a later time. It's a capital asset is going to be put in place and potentially depreciated. There's going to be, tier requirements and other pieces of that that are going to create rate pressures on all ratepayers. So I think that it's not within that 18-month window.
So I'm confused. It says you can go in and you're able to authorize an innovative rate or service as a pilot program without attaining prior approval if it's designed to meet that third tier, has a duration of 18 months or less. What? That would be the innovative rate or service?
Yes,
But so if it's a rate thing, then that rate, that innovative rate has to go away after 18 months.
yes.
And if it's a service, can you give me an example of that, which would go away in 18 months?
Yeah, I mean, I could see a company trialing, for example, an electric vehicle rate.
Okay.
Trialing a rate that might discount in exchange perhaps for some flexibility on the customer's part for their load. Trialing something and finding out that it doesn't quite work the way they expected it. And so they propose either a modification or they withdraw it and try something else.
But they have to, so if they do it and it's successful, they still have to get rid of it after 18 months.
They really have to get rid of it or modify it so they can learn something further through a subsequent 18-month iteration, or it's a successful program and they implement it as a formal tariff. So then they file it as a tariff and apply normal tariffing procedures under 225.
But Riley,
Yep.
I buy an electric car. That's quite an investment.
Right.
I get everything wired into my garage.
Mhm.
And part of my cost benefit is I'm going to get a lower rate if I plug that car in from 10 o'clock at night till 5 o'clock the next morning. I would not find that quite as enticing if you said, yeah, but after 14 months, you're going back and pay the full rate until such time as we file a tariff, and it takes another year to go through the PUC. And there's electric rates, incentives for that kind of thing all over the place. I can't believe that GMP's incentives go away. I thought this said it could continue.
If you sign up for the rate, it can continue. You can structure it different ways. So you could create an innovative rate. Riley Allen participates in that rate, and you could structure it to go and last for 4 or 5 years, or even indefinitely, as long as I'm still in the same location. Other things are the same. You can set a duration on that, and that's what Green Mountain Power has done. They've said the duration was longer than the 18-month window, and so they had a program, implemented a experimental EV rate, and then I think it was probably like 36 months that went by before they essentially said, okay, now we're going to end that rate, even though the opening of that rate was only available during that 18-month window.
Okay, so they only could offer it for 14 months.
18 months.
Well, that was GMP, but this, if the munis want to do this, they could say, okay, for 14 months, any of you have to sign up And I just get a thing from Senator Hardy, who has to leave. Senator, do you have any objection to this as it stands?
I think we're on the right track. I trust all of you guys to figure it out. I just said, please, somebody write it down so we know what it is, because I'm not here to take notes. But
You
it
can
sounds
talk
like,
to Ellen in the morning.
sounds like we're on the right track. I trust you all.
Okay.
See you tomorrow. Thanks.
We wouldn't be
Okay,
voting.
so the innovative rate can be offered for 14 months, but it can be structured so that if you sign up within this 14-month period, you're going to get a lower rate to charge your car or dry your clothes between 10 o'clock at night and 6 o'clock in the morning. Is that? And after the 5 years that this offer is out there,
It might
the
sunset
rate,
for
is
individuals.
that,
I think, I'm not sure where the 14 months is, but I'm looking at the 18.
I don't know. Okay,
Yeah,
it says
okay.
18 months. All
18
right.
months, okay, yeah. But
Somebody
yeah,
said
that's,
14.
yeah, that's broadly the framework. Yeah, there's a innovative rate that is offered for, whatever the window is, 18 months. And then they could cast it as, gee, it will be available for at least 36 months or something longer. But they have to, yeah, I mean, they're piloting, they're trying to learn from the experience, and they're
So
adjusting.
So I guess I think I hear what you're saying, Riley. I'm not sure that's what it says. I mean, or
Okay.
somebody could really interpret it. So you're saying we can make an incentive offering to certain class of people, and we can have it out there for 18 months. And then if we wanted to continue to offer that to people, we'd have to come in for a full-blown review on
to
our
more
tariff.
people.
But the first offering of 18 months can be an offer that goes out for 20 years.
It can be something like, I mean, it's, we can always kind of investigate, but the idea is to offer something that doesn't essentially automatically kind of turn them off. So you might want to go beyond the 18 months and saying, we are going to make this available for 24, 36, or 48 months. So it has some material, retail customers have some sense of material value in the commitment that they're receiving. But yeah, I mean, I'm modeling it on what our experience is with the Green Mountain Power framework, and that's worked reasonably well, and that allows that kind of flexibility to extend beyond the 18-month.
And do they have language somewhere about it that copies that this language is taken from? I'm just wondering whether, when I originally read it, I didn't realize it could go for 20 years. I thought it was just a short term.
Well, it says it's a pilot.
Right. But it's a pilot that effectively could become, at least for the people who jump in on that pilot, can exercise that preferential rate for a very long time.
We're expecting the utilities to exercise, a judgment on what would work for them and for their customers. So my expectation is that they would essentially make offerings that help to that was material enough to actually learn from it, but not so material that they were committed to for the next 20 years to that rate. And I think that's more typical of what we find in the case of Green Mountain Power. But then, folks have committed to batteries under the pilots, and those
Right.
have duration well beyond the 18 months.
Okay. A bigger issue I have, Madam Chair, is the C2. Riley, you said that this came, or someone said this came from the department. Are you wedded to the 2%?
No.
Because I, that's a big number. And I see, we're talking about 2% in the flexible rate portion in any filing. And now in this pilot, we can also increase rates, maybe for a select group of people, maybe for 75% of the ratepayers by another 2% here. So it just seems like a large number for an innovative thing, given what the threshold we're saying where we have to go for full review. It's sort of the same numbers where we're saying if you want for more than 2%, you got to come in for a full rate review. But if you want a pilot, you can go up to 2% of the entire company's overall cost of service.
You can absolutely adjust that number. That's whatever makes sense.
Can,
Okay, I got Sandra Pearson's got it.
well, I just want to clarify something that Senator Sorokin's making me think about. In the pilot framework, nobody is forced. These are not rates that would be forced upon people, right? They're more like offers, and we want to see if people will take advantage, and if too many people take advantage, maybe we'll have to scale it back or whatever. Am I right that there would not be a forced dynamic?
No, I'd see Riley saying yes and Michael saying no.
Yeah.
So
Well, it doesn't say that.
no, let Riley go. It's his proposal.
Let me try to explain. So there will be certain offerings that, I'm sorry that I'm kind of using the Green Mountain Power, frame as my reference point, but it's material and relevant. But a lot of these rates are things that actually kind of pay for themselves. The innovations out there are, if I sign up for that EV rate, there are value streams that can be harvested immediately. And there is, if anything, there's kind of a value that is created for the system that doesn't kind of increase rates at all. And you could constrain the range of innovative offerings to those things that essentially provide immediate kind of material benefit, or expected to provide immediate material benefit without any risk to essentially non-participating ratepayers. Our judgment was that we wanted them to essentially have a little more latitude than that. But it's possible that you could get into instances where they trial something, a battery storage device, material capital investment in people's garages or the like. And the risk is essentially if that investment doesn't lead to the value streams that are expected from that in the short term, that there could be exposure to other ratepayers and to the entire system. And that's why we wanted to create some boundary elements. My expectation is that they would, be steering away from, significant risk to the system and whatnot. It's really a question of, just how tight do you want to kind of weave this? And 2% is not immaterial. I agree with that. But we wanted to encourage utilities to essentially learn from, and I think build from, some of the experimentation and piloting work that's going on with other utilities, especially Green Mountain Power. We think they're learning things, and some of the value that they're creating can be kind of appropriately applied in other circumstances. And probably with more confidence about what the results are going to look like, because we do have the Green Mountain Power experience to help build from.
Okay, so the bottom line is there's risk here that there may be some effect on rates. But the other side of that risk is that if we do nothing, we never learn what will work. A pilot says, okay, nobody took us up on it, therefore I guess it's not a good idea. Or, geez, so many people took it up on maybe we need to scale it back. But you've got to do some innovation or you die.
Yeah. In this case, I'm not anti-sandbox, Madam Chair. I'd like to see the innovation, but we're giving up on.
You didn't like my sandbox?
I say I'm not anti-sandbox.
No, but last time.
No, last time was big time. Yeah, that had something else to do with other things. But we're giving up any kind of review here, and I don't want to necessarily see rates go up for the rest of the people, and I don't want to see ultra large pilot projects. And I think 2% is pretty large. Is there any kind of, in the last section on flexible review, we had all these.
There's rule writing at the end of this.
No, I was talking about in the last section, we had the public service department could object and the public can object. Do we have anything in this section where those kinds of objections could be
Yes,
filed, where this kind of pilot would
Yes.
have to go through a bigger review?
yes.
We do? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see it, but I can't see the full.
It
Maybe
should
you
be
need to keep
45 days.
going. Where is it?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Here it is.
Okay. Thanks. Well, at a minimum, to move us along, Madam Chair, I would change that 2% to 1% or lower.
Okay. So that works.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Senator Bray.
so from the committee down the hall that's always trying to help utilities innovate and do stuff, I want to speak up in favor of leaving it as is. As Senator Pearson just pointed out, you have to voluntarily say, oh, I want to participate in that pilot. And the utilities that are running them I think they're keenly aware of what they're risking for. Well, we're also talking about munis, so that seem to be pretty careful, period. So we're trying to change a lot of things, and the more formal the review gets, the more burdensome, the less apt, I think, from talking to utilities, at least my impression is they are less likely to try something because it becomes a burdensome process to even experiment. And so I haven't seen any experiments go awry, and there's so much of our system to transform. I just want to encourage us to be open-minded about this one.
So just
can we put the 1% in, and does that work? Knowing that,
Senator Bray just argued against it.
I know.
I'll confess I'm struggling because the one example I can think of was the electric car charging that Green Mountain Power did, and it was awesome. It was too good a deal for customers. They were paying $30 a month to basically fuel up their car, and Green Mountain Power, it was too successful, and they came back and they had to calm it down. So in my mind, the examples are on the plus side. So maybe Riley, could we just ask, can you you've mentioned the battery storage. I know that I believe that was something similar that has actually been very positive for rates, if I understand. Could you give us a story of a risk that would help us illustrate it? And then, and do you have any feedback on the 1% versus 2%?
Well, I just, I worry that, Green Mountain Power has a big rate base. The distribution, the municipal and cooperative utilities, they're much smaller systems. And frankly, I don't think they're as capital intensive, at least from the standpoint of kind of recent patterns of investment. But I'm sorry, I'm losing the question. Can you just remind me?
Well, do you have an opinion about 1% versus 2%? And could you give us some of the downside examples? Because I'm only thinking of good examples, and it sounds like Senator Bray is also thinking of the
Well, I think the battery one, if to the extent that they're placing these batteries, they're gonna have a spreadsheet. It's gonna have a cost benefit analysis, and they're going to essentially say, gee, the life of the battery is maybe 15 years, and we're expecting these batteries to kind of degrade at 0.5% or 1% a year, and here's what, we're going to be harvesting value from the wholesale capacity markets, or wholesale capacity market and bulk transmission markets, the RNS charges, and here's how we're going to do it, and make forecasts, and then they don't materialize. That is, those value streams don't materialize as expected because the markets turn down, or the batteries degrade more than expected, or things just unfold. There isn't as much take up, so upfront commitments to the program. They buy a lot of batteries that they're going to be installing, and the customers decide that they're not interested in participating in the program. There are risks associated with these sorts of things. Making those sorts of capital investments can turn out badly, and can bear on the system costs, especially with the munis and co-ops. There's really nowhere else for the cost to go but to essentially fall back on ratepayers. So there are risks that they don't get their spreadsheet analysis at the front end right, not for their own fault, but just that life doesn't turn out as expected.
Okay, we are running out of time. We still have S1. So I'm going to do a show of hands if I can get rid of my chat here somewhere. Go away, chat. I can't get rid of it.
Can I ask a really quick question?
Yeah, I'm looking for a show of hands for how many are comfortable going forward with the present wording. All right, I've got one.
Has
two.
Melissa weighed in on this?
Yeah, do you
Melissa, have
mean
you
the whole
weighed in on
thing?
this?
We're fine with the bill as drafted. If it's helpful, I can provide some dollar figures that would speak to the 1 or 2% threshold, if that's helpful for the committee.
Yeah, that would help.
So the average for the VEPSA members net plant, the overall assets is about 9 million. That's an average. And so the 2% threshold would be $187,000. That would be like what was at play for this pilot. And again, that's a range. That's an average across our members.
That's
1% would be
not, the 9 million is your total revenue?
No, total.
the
Average
assets,
value.
The average what?
utility assets, the net plant.
Well, that's only part A. Part B is the cost for service for the entire system. That's what I'm focused on.
So that says it could result in a 2% rate increase. I mean, I can tell you what our rates are. The rates range from 11 cents a kilowatt hour up to about 19 cents a kilowatt hour. So you'd have to apply a 2% rate increase to those numbers.
Well, what is that in dollars for the whole system, though?
I could pull that revenue.
That's what I'm focused on, is the second part, the 2% of the total system cost, which we
I'm having a problem, Sandra, understanding what your concern is. Is it that some people are going to take part in a pilot and other people are going to see their rates go up 2%?
potentially that's what's allowed for here. And I'm not going to get into an argument with my fellow committee members, but there was a statement that this is a totally voluntary program. Yes, people can volunteer who want to take advantage of it, who have an electric car, but ultimately the cost, if that's unsuccessful, falls on the people who never volunteered for this program.
Right.
So,
But if it is successful, the benefit falls on those same people.
that's true. And all I'm saying is we spent a lot of time dealing with 2% on the front end.
Yeah.
and we're just giving it away in a pilot at the back end. So
Okay,
Yeah.
I've got Senator Bray. We are staying here, folks, until we get agreement on S1, so.
This is a
welcome.
question for Mr. Allen, I think. So currently, Green Mountain Power has been able to do this because they have I don't know, I call it they're under alt reg. Is that the right way to refer to their rate?
Well, they refer to it as a multi-year rate plan, but it's the alt reg provisions 218D that enable them to have a multi-year rate plan.
Okay, and so, I'm thinking about a little bit from an equity point of view here. So GMP, by virtue of, I don't know, its size and muscle,
Mhm.
comes in, goes through a process that puts them in a place to run pilots. Now we're saying to the smaller munis, well, you're not going to be able to have the same capacity to run pilots. And so I would, to me, that's like, they're the small munis, I think, are some of the ones that would most like to innovate, because they don't have the $1.7 billion plant out there, sort of a giant flywheel turning to keep everything steady. So it just seems like a fairness issue. Like how come the big utility gets to innovate and the little guys have a tougher request to make in order to innovate?
Okay, Riley, I heard that this is put in at the request of the department?
Yeah.
This didn't originate with the munis?
No.
Okay, so you're saying munis, if you want to, you can try out some of these things.
We don't, yeah, we just think this is one of the barriers that exists for utilities in kind of moving forward and innovating. The industry is generally slow to innovate, and we're trying to find ways to lower the barriers.
If things get out of hand, can I assume you can go in and tell them to cease and desist?
Yes, well, we can request the commission to do that. We can't tell them to, yeah.
Okay, so there is a fallback. If it looks like everyone's going to get nailed with a 5% rate increase, you have the ability to intervene or on behalf of ratepayers with the commission. Okay. Committee, how many are comfortable with the language as it is? I've got Senator Bray. Okay, I've got 4 of us. Senator McDonald, I can't see your hands. Is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? It's a thumbs down. Okay. I believe I had 1, 2, 3, 4. So the vote is 4-2, and I think we're going forward. And I think that's it. I'd like to let Ellen draft. Would anybody feel any better if we lowered the number to 1%?
I'm done with that argument, Madam Chair.
Oh,
I did
will I
yesterday.
get your vote if I lower it to 1%?
I'm gonna vote for it regardless, doesn't matter. But
Senator McDonald, I don't need you anymore.
well, you had the votes already anyhow.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
But
I like unanimous votes.
I'm not changing my vote, but on that one. But yesterday, Senator Hardy and I both expressed concern about having some language in the bill that talked about the Public Utility Commission, or I guess, the ability to look at past flexible rates going up to see if there was something in there that was awry and that could affect what they allowed for going forward. And you told me to draft something. I immediately wrote Ellen asking her to draft something, and I don't see it in here
Okay, and I
at
think
all.
Riley said they did that.
No, maybe, no, I haven't
I
seen it.
remember the discussion.
Well, I don't remember any resolution of it. I did ask
Okay.
whether it was necessary.
Ellen, did you draft something?
I did not.
Okay.
So
I'm happy to put it off till tomorrow and to get the language and offer it to the committee, but I'm not sure. I also asked whether it was necessary. They could already do that, but I thought by putting that language in, it might just send a signal. Be careful about how quickly you use this 2% thing, because it may come back to haunt you later if you somehow.
It also means they have to come in for a rate review. Riley, I thought you said you did that.
Well, I can't, I don't know what to say. I don't remember saying that, but I do, I mean, I can explain what we can and I feel like we shouldn't do. But we can always look at anything. I mean, we can always kind of look at the books. Generally speaking, what we do when we set rates though, we're always looking forward. We're always looking at what are the rates going forward, and we can control the rates going forward. We can't claw back and take things away unless they have implications for the future. So to the extent that there's a historic investment that is made that has impacts on a foregoing basis on rates, we can kind of challenge those and say, no, those were not used and useful, or they were imprudently incurred. But we can't go back and, if they were in effect for a year prior to our taking a look, essentially claw back monies that have already essentially been expended and received from the utility. That's just something we don't do. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And I can speak to that if you're interested.
How did you do the -1% for Stowe then? That was on.
That was also a forward-looking a rate adjustment. We were setting rates. We were looking, what we would do is we would look at their test year, so it's the last 12 months, and we would say, okay, in the rate year, which is essentially the forward-going 12 months, what changes between that historic year and that forward-looking year that is changing that would affect the rates going down. So it might have been a change in market circumstances. Forward capacity costs might have gone down in that intervening period, and we would make an adjustment for that. We would say that, no, the test year, which was set at X, $100, is now going to be $97 because some of the market condition, when we look at all the costs all together, we can identify certain things that are known and measurable, known to be changing, and on a foregoing basis, we can apply those changes in the rate year, the next 12 months.
Okay, so if you saw that the market rates had consistently gone down, but rates had gone up, you could say in the next year, you can't go back and say, oh no, we're clawing back all the money you charged.
Right.
But you could say in the next year, your rate is going to be 6% lower than it was the year before.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so you can make an adjustment if things are done. All right.
But always forward-looking. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can't go back and say you have to go from 2 to 1% 3 years ago.
That's right.
All right, Senator Bray.
So, I'm a little surprised at some of this conversation because I'm starting to feel like we're broaching on micromanaging the PUC and the department in a very complex area of utility law. I'm frankly a little bit taken aback. And when they bring a proposal, yes, we vet it, but now, since I can only speak for myself, even though I'm interested in this stuff, I don't have the capacity to analyze all these things. And I know they're deeply involved in processes that run for a year to come up with their answers. So I'm inclined to trust their judgment on these things. So I don't mean to speak against the committee. I'm just a little surprised at how far we're going on things that are quite technical.
I'm having trouble processing that at the end of this day, that some of the subtleties. But
yeah, I don't know.
I think, Ellen, have you got enough to go do a final draft on this one? I think we're as in much agreement as we're going to get. And then, do you need anything else?
I think the only changes I heard are that I'm going to insert a 30-day time window.
Yeah.
And I'm going to strike section 5, which was the date after which a rate making had to have occurred.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if I heard any changes to subsection O. Did you
I don't
decide on any?
think
Okay.
so at this point.
Okay.
A lot of talk, but we did one show of hands and I think the status quo is holding. Okay. Thank you, everyone. We're now going back.
Madam Chair,
Senator Sirotkin, yeah.
I still like Ellen to draft my amendment to present to the committee tomorrow.
Okay, but I think Riley said, well, can you go back and claw back money, Riley, legally?
I'm not asking for a clawback. So to speak.
Okay,
Asking them to be able to at least look at, maybe there's we're giving a lot of open flexibility now to avoid rate review. So I just want to make sure that everything is.
okay. Talk to Riley and just find something that
I will.
makes you feel better and is within his legal capacity. Riley?
I'm sorry, we had talked about 10 years. Is that 10 years in the bill somewhere?
Oh, we're gonna do an and
Okay,
on the
okay.
first page
Okay,
instead of an
okay.
or. That's
That
Okay,
was the
thank you.
first change.
Okay, good.
Long time ago.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, committee, we're going back to Rygate. And we've gained Chuck Storrow. We've lost Dylan. Ellen, I feel horrible doing this to you, but it should all be over. We'll go home. Some of us are actually late for another meeting, I think. And so what is the final thing we've got on Rygate?
So is that question to me? So
Yes. Did you
I,
get a chance to draft it or not? And we can wait till tomorrow.
so I think I have an idea. I did not draft anything.
Okay.
I spoke to the stakeholders in the short time I left you before I came back.
True.
I think I have an idea of what you are after, but I think it is actually very different than what you discussed earlier. So
What do you think we are after?
So what I think I heard towards the end of the discussion was that you're interested in an extension of the current contract and then having information in 3-ish years from the owner about what they're either having the feasibility study or the information on what their co-location project is.
Yeah, I think we want
to, so
I am still saying it just might turn out it's not feasible to do anything. That is a possibility. So we want a study that says, yeah, it's feasible to do X, Y, and Z. And we've talked to, so-and-so about wood pellets and so-and-so about haberdashery or shrimp or whatever. And this would be feasible under these circumstances. I think what we heard from Dylan was a pellet might be feasible if the plant ran 12 months of the year or 10 months of the year, but if the dispatch criteria that gets put on them by the PUC when they go in for the full rate review might make the pellets not feasible. However, the shrimp guy, and here's his name, says he could operate in the summer because it's warm enough to keep the shrimp alive without the heat. Or somebody, so I think and I don't know how you put it, they want more than just, yeah, it's feasible, it's not. They want, this is feasible, and these are the folks, and these are the conditions that would make it feasible.
What about if we talked about a plan? I mean, if feasibility would come first before there's a plan.
Okay.
Madam Chair, we
Chuck,
don't,
I want to let Chuck Storrow talk. Then I'll get to you. Chuck.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chuck Storrow, Leonine Public Affairs, here on behalf of Storage Solar. I've been working with Dylan on this, so I'm familiar with the conversation. We have a modified version of our proposal for a bifurcated term that I would like to describe to the committee. I think it's simple, and I think it addresses your concerns. And basically, it is that we would be granted a 5-year extension of the term. And if before the end of that term, we actually have developed and it's operational, a project that uses the excess heat, then we get another 5 years.
Okay.
So
So
it would not be a case
you're
where
asking for a couple more years to actually have a project that is operational within 5 years. If you do, you get another 5 years, which I can see you're not going to get anything operational if they don't know they're going to go more than a year. And if you don't, then you're at the mercy of the PUC or us. Is
That's
that
sort of it, Madam Chair? I mean, as it is right now, the current arrangement extends through November 1, 2022.
Yeah.
Under the bill, the PUC would have to develop a new rate for the term beyond November 1, 2022. We really can't do too much substantive work about developing a project to take the heat until that new rate is set. I mean, we can do some preliminary work, but we really can't get going. So we would have 5
so
years.
you want not an extension, but a new contract.
A new contract for 5 years. And if before that 5 years elapses, we have a plant online and operational that uses the heat, then we get another 5 years.
I see Senator Bray, and while Senator McDonald was there first, and then Senator Bray.
Madam Chair, I thought when we left, we welcomed the company to come back at any time during the 3 year and 3 months extension to propose any of the items that they have suggested and anything that they haven't thought of yet and anything that Commissioner Snyder might propose. And that during that time, the 3 years and 3 months that would be a result of a 2-year extension, that the deal that they have now is not altered when it comes to the way in which they're paid.
Yes, that was the former discussion. He's come with a counter proposal.
And the counter proposal is for them to have another 5 years to do whatever they want. And then in 5 years, we will have another decision. So I would recommend we not extend this to what would amount to 7 years and 4 months to find out that we're right back where we started from. And that just doesn't make sense. There is no reason that we would be operating this plant in the future to purchase the electricity because it's too damn expensive. There's no reason for having a stealth tax increase on the ratepayers to simply produce electricity at above market rates. We have agreed, or I think we are sympathetic to the foresters whose business is lagging both in this state and across the river. And we're open to proposals to keep the plant going, provided that it benefits them and it doesn't cost as much money for electricity that we don't now need than what would happen if we simply extended it for 5 years.
But
7 and 6 years.
we've got two issues. The PUC says that doing a full rate study for a 5-year extension is cost prohibitive. It's
We're
not
not
worth
asking
their
them to do
no,
that.
no, I'm just trying to line that up. Tell me if I'm wrong. They're saying that it's cost prohibitive. The company is saying that unless we know the new rates and the new terms, we don't know what kind of deal we can make with another company. You know, wood pellets might be a good thing if we're going to run X amount of months, and we all seem to like wood pellets. But it makes a big difference to that manufacturer if he can't get the heat 3 months of the year. So I know you don't care, but
No,
if
no,
you
no
want
one's
this-
proposing that. And no proposal.
Okay,
has been
that's
made.
what we're
Yeah.
trying to figure out.
Yeah.
We have proposed that we extend the present contract for 3 years and ask for, and that's 3 years from the date of this contract,
Yeah.
and ask for a detailed study of what possible uses might be there and under what terms.
Yes.
Then that comes to us. If we like some of those ideas, they go to the PUC. The PUC then knows that if they say you have to shut down for 3 months of the year into their dispatch, then they know that they are precluding wood pellets. If they know, but they will be able to make that rates and costs to the ratepayer versus the value of using that thermal and being more efficient. And they will be able to take that into consideration, feeling the new terms, which means then Mr. Storo can go back and say, the owners, and say, okay, we can do this, this, and this. There is the possibility, and I mean, we're talking markets, we're talking fuel, which is worse than pork bellies to be speculating on. We're, to try and predict what's going to happen in 5 years or 3 years in this economy, in this whole sector is difficult. And we may find out that there is no taker. And then we can say, okay, then that's it. That's our choice. But they're not going to get a commitment from somebody unless they know the rates the terms they can negotiate under, and unless that taker knows they're going to be able to operate for X number of years. That's just the way it is. Senator Bray.
So, thanks for walking through that whole scenario. The thing that that extension to me leaves unanswered is, so 5 years hence, they'll still be at the PUC. Well, I thought we were saying they have 18 months or a little less than 2 years, right? November 20.
Yeah, to bring in a feasibility study.
And then they get 3 years. So 4 years from now or so, they finally get to the PUC, proposal in hand or not. And it's only going to be after that proceeding, which runs about a year, that they're actually going to know their price. And so it seems like they're in the same jam of who could sign up for anything if they don't know what their price is. So it seems like it would be helpful to everyone to have the moment of truth come sooner rather than later, like start the clock. I don't know what to say. I'm thinking of start the clock now and get to that question and that rate sooner. I don't see the benefit of extending.
Well, they've got another year to go on their, or a little more than a year on their contract.
Right, but we're all aiming for something much more than if it's
Yes,
really going to
we
be
are.
viable, we're aiming for something much more than a year. So I'm not personally seeing the value of delaying getting to the proceeding and getting an answer about whether or not they're going to be able to have a partner that's financially viable.
Well, could we, they asked them before they, and I think if we're gonna hold this to a 5-year, maximum, it is going to be very difficult to get a business partner, just from the financial investment that's gonna be necessary. And say, oh, and by the way, you're by the time you get built, you've only got 3 years to operate. It's going to be hard. So
So I don't want to
Chris,
be
can
stuck
you
on Chris.
build? I'm looking at Pearson, but
Right. Can I just add a note on that? So Chris Brooks said, I don't really know what he was referring to. He said, oh, there's money around for a feasibility study. Don't worry about that. I don't know how that
well,
works.
that's his feasibility study. There probably is.
Okay, whatever it was. So,
Yeah. But I don't think the legislature can be choosing a vendor to do it.
No, I'm just trying to not have us. And if I were the owner of this thing and now I had a partner alongside that had done their own feasibility study, it seems as though they stand a much better chance of having a successful proceeding. It's my guess. They say, oh, we're here. We have the partner. They're all lined up. They've done their work. But waiting 5 years to get to that conversation seems like a long time.
But part of that feasibility is, how long am I going to have to operate? I.e., how long is the contract? And what am I going to have to pay? And until they get the new contract, the owners don't know what their profit margin kind of thing is. So, Chris, can you bail this one out?
I have some ideas.
Oh, good.
What it seems like we've nibbled around a lot of pieces of this. So, nobody quite knows exactly how long the feasibility and the engineering studies take and require, and the business brokerings take. But I think what we're all saying is basically, if you can't have something co-located, then we don't think it's worth it. So why don't we give them an additional 2 years, as Mr. Faber helpfully pointed us, under your current sort of rate structure, after which you have the ability to go to the PUC with your co-locating plan and get into that whole process. And if you don't have a co-locating plan, then you do not have the ability to go and get special rate treatment from the PUC. Now, just because we've invited them to start that process at the PUC doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to work. Everybody understands that both the plant operator and whoever they're co-locating with needs to understand the whole universe. So, people will only make so many investments up front. But we've talked about this idea that there's a condition before you can go to the PUC. And we could even make it clear that the PUC can only approve it if they're convinced that this partnership is going to work. It seems to me that would get us through some of this, where we're not expecting you to break ground. We're not saying everything's got to be dotted and you got to have all your contracts settled, but you've got to have a plan that everybody agrees is feasible. At the end of the hearing, when the rates are made clear, maybe it's no longer feasible. Well, then we've learned that, and they don't get preferential rate. That's aggressive. I understand.
Yeah, no, I think where I started.
Well, I kind of think we've all talked around it, but maybe, I don't know. I mean, Sarah Bray, Sarah McDonald, is that close to what we've been trying to get to?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
when they put up a plan, then it can either be accepted or rejected. And meanwhile, we'll give them the time to go out and come up with a plan.
And would we agree that the
2 years
PUC,
is adequate. Another 2 years is adequate. And if they come back and say we're almost there, well, then we can show us what you got. Well, maybe we'll give you another year and you'll work the rest of it out. So they come back sooner. Hallelujah. We
And
could
would,
get
and
Bill up
can
to the
they
next-
get a 10-year contract when they come back?
So
That
this
would
is
be
actually
depend
where
on what
I,
they bring back and what the next 10 years look like. We've been
Okay.
granting 10-year contracts without any conditions just because we used to grant 10-year contracts.
I know, but there also needs to be a certain period of guaranteed income before anybody's going to put
Ellen-
a shovel in the ground.
Ellen had an idea.
well, so this is where, from a drafting standpoint, legally, it's a little bit tricky because the statute sets the obligation for power to be purchased by the utilities from this facility. So it sets that date. And then the company goes to the PUC to have the price set and the contract set. So it's weird from a drafting standpoint to put into statute this sort of hypothetical of, is there having the PUC evaluate if they've met the definiteness of a contract to then determine how long of a long-term contract they can get. I feel like I didn't explain that last part.
Why
No,
not?
The second,
Okay.
the sort of second long-term aspect is
Okay.
what I'm like, how it seems in my head to be more that the company would need to come to the legislature to ask for the next long-term.
Okay. I think we talked about that earlier, that they would return to us. We would say, yeah, okay, we think that's a good enough plan. And then they could go to the PUC. Does that work? That lets the PUC off the hook, making what they think we might think is a good decision. And then for the next 20 years, some of us might hold a grudge. Not that that's ever happened.
But
Chuck,
that is sort of the crux of the issue about.
Okay. They're going to come back to us. We're going to extend it for 2 years, and that's from the 22nd, from 2022. So they've got 3.5 years to bring us back a detailed plan for how they were going to use that heat. And it could be more than one scenario. Saying, I could use wood pellets if you do this, I could do shrimp if you do that.
Yep.
Or maybe no one wants to talk to us at all, at which point we'll think about it. Chuck.
I hear what you're saying, Madam Chair, and that's certainly one approach. The thing that I would stress is that under that approach, we would come back to the legislature in 2024 or before 2024 with a plan. Whereas what I'm proposing is that we would, in order to operate beyond 2027, we would actually have to have a co-host operational, not a plan, it's there. And that's knowable. And that's not anything that's, speculative, it's concrete. So yes, there would be an additional 5 years beyond 2022 when we can operate without a co-host, but we want the 10 years. So we're going to develop a co-host and we're going to get it built, or else we're done in 5 years.
And I think what I've heard some members of the committee say is, yeah, so you come back in 5 years and we've still got nothing.
Well, I mean,
As-
we're done by, unless the
You'd be done.
legislature cut us slack, we're done. And, everything we've said today and what I've said would probably be used against us if we're arguing for more time. I mean, what I'm saying is that the law going forward would grant us the 5 years, and that's it, unless we actually have the project built and operational.
Okay, but you
I'm
want
not
the
seeing
rate,
a-
you want
I'm
the
not
rate
seeing a
hearing
big
before that.
The rate
I'm not-
hearing would happen to set the new rate for the period 2022 to 27 and potentially to 32 if we get that extra 5 years.
Senator Sorokin.
I guess on this one, I'm not going to go into the weeds, Madam Chair. I'm just,
Thank you, it's getting late.
yeah, my big concern here is that what Chuck is offering and what has been offered is good if there is a viable market possibility. If there's not, we're just going to be back in the same place, regardless of what we write. They might take their decommissioning funds and just go home, and the loggers and the softwoods and everything is still going to be in our lap to fix. And I don't know what we can do about that. So I feel like the people and the forests are, our major concern here. And I'm not so sure that we're somehow keeping the pressure on to either find the marketplace solution or to start thinking.
Right.
I mean, I'm thinking globally of, again, Vermont Yankee, Joe Biden and coal. Everybody's saying we got to move from these things and we got to plan for the future to do this. I think we're setting ourselves up for kicking the can down the road again. So.
Okay. I think the best we're going to get is the plan in 2 years, a 2-year extension. The plan comes back to the legislature. If we approve, then it goes for a full-blown rate hearing before the PUC. I see Greg can live with that. Senator McDonald can live with that. So Senator Bray, can you live with that?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say I appreciate what Senator Sorokin was just bringing up. I mean, I think it's pretty fair to say we're only having this conversation because of a concern for the logging and forestry industry over on that side of the state. So if we're not keeping them front and center and we're just sort of nursing them along on a system that's going to fail later, then I think we'll all regret that we just dragged it out. So the sooner we can get ourselves to a decision point, and the better.
On as far as we're going to go. Senator Brock, can you live with this? Okay. Jim Pearson, Senator McDonald. Ellen, can you live with this? Is this something you can draft? That they will return to the legislature in 2 years after.
2 years
And
from 2022, so that's 2024 is when.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and we won't be in session for 2 months, so they will submit their plan to the legislature at that point or earlier if possible,
Earlier, yeah, maybe earlier.
on or before.
For the logger's sake, I hope it's earlier.
Okay,
There's
I
tons of
think
work
it's
around
obvious
here.
that we would probably prefer wood pellets to shrimp. Even though I like shrimp.
I like your idea of haberdashery and shrimp, because then you can be making little hats for shrimp. So
I haven't thought of that. All right.
Symbiosis.
Haberdashers have to dry felt. It takes a lot of heat. Or arsenic, but
That's a good term.
Mercury, wasn't it?
yeah, it was mercury.
Right, matter than
All right,
matter.
so are we gonna try to look at that tomorrow and finish it up?
Yes, tomorrow is the last day.
Super.
So we've got these two that we're going to get out tomorrow. Okay. So I think that's it. Ellen, give me a call if you have any questions. And I will see everybody tomorrow. Thank you.
Thanks.
I wish I could say next week's going to be better, but I'm not at all sure about that.
Shall I take